How's it going, guys? I thought I'd do this quick video. Over the weekend, and that I did um, what I think the sprint car garage should look like. Um, they've said that the sprint cars they rushed them through. They had a choice of not releasing them straight away, and because they've got other stuff to do, and or oh, not sorry, not release it straight away and do it properly and do all the physics properly and everything, or just release it as it is, and that so to get the car out there. So, because as you can see, they spend a lot of time on the late model, and that you can see how much stuff you can change in the late model. So, what I decided to do was I've done multiple posts on iRacing forum, so I wasn't quite sure if they were seeing or if anyone had pointed out to them. So what I did was I'll transfer this over so you can see. What I did was I went into the uh, physics modeling discussion, um, and I posted the forum on the forum there how iRacing sprint car garage should look like, and I didn't do all the stuff on there, as you can see on here on the forum post. I didn't add the high-low speed pill, and that for the fuel for the motor. Um, and then I just gave some things on uh, stuff they should add to be able to be adjusted, um, and how much and everything. So I put a little discussion there, um, and then you'll see on here, and that I've done this is what I did in Photoshop, and that's so zoom in, make it a bit easier. And that so you've got your front of your nose weight, and that exactly the same as the sprint car one. What I did was I copied the winged one, exactly the same, and that for the non-wing one, except for you wouldn't have the wing part here, and that. But yeah, I just left exactly the same thing as what they've got there with the steering offset. Then they've got the pitman arm, and basically they're both the same thing. If you have a look on the thing, one is the length of the pitman arm, and that which will change your steering ratio, and that so, and then you got the steering offset, which also then changes your your steering ratio. So I don't know, they've got it there three times, but anyway. Yeah, so what I added was I added the front panhard bar, or some call it the panhard bar. Um, that position, that's the bar that's on the front axle. It mounts the from the front axle on the front of it to the chassis, and that which holds the front axle so it doesn't move left and right. You can then move that up and down, and that depending on where you want that front axle to position. Standard, they usually set the panhard bar level with the front axle, and then which is the bottom hole, because there's only two holes, and then you move it up one hole on the frame, and that moves that front axle out on the right hand side, and that's so um, it will then cause the front end to slide a lot more. It's like spacing the right rear in and out. It just spaces that, moves that wheel out further, and allows the front to slide more. Also, I added the front caster here, so on a slick track, and that you can increase that caster, and that so then this will make the steering heavier. But when you counter lock, what it does is it's because that caster is increased, and that it drives that pushes more load down on the track with the front wheels, and also transfers the weight to the rear a lot easier. They run that on a super slick track. The non-wing guys have probably got 10 degrees in theirs. I know some of the midget guys were running 10 degrees on a tacky track, so I'll put that there in, and then I put the front wing. I had a look at the front wing that they've got modelled, and looked at the World of Outlaws rule book. It says on the rule book, um, from the front of the nose of the wing to the front push bar, and that it's got to sit an inch back from the complete front of the push bar. So then, if if you touch someone, it touches the front push bar or not the front wing. That's all it is. That's as far forward as you can go. Looking at the picture of the transfer it over, you can see. If you look at the picture, you'll see the nose, and that see the front of the nose wing, how far back it's sitting from the front push bar, and that so that can go further forward, and that which will then keep that nose down more, and that so um, it's more like an aerodynamic thing. So what I did was I put that in there. So where it's sitting right now would be like -3, so it's like 3 inches behind the front of the nose, front push. So yeah, I'll put that in there, and then also there's a wicker bill. You can put a wicker bill on the on the front wing. Maximum is 1 inch on the World of Outlaw rule book, and that's so. So I'll put that in there, and that what that does is just to create a bit more drag on that front nose and keeps that front down. But yeah, you can adjust that from 0 and that to 1 inch. I reckon it should be done. Top wing, we know that, but also there's a wicker bill on the top wing. On the World of Outlaws rules, the largest you can go with the top wing is 2 inches. So um, the guys in Australia here, and that some run not one at all, and that so, and then what they do is they just increase the angle of their wing, top wing, just to create a bit more drag that way. But then, like on a slick track, they'll add a wicker bill, and that to create more drag at the top, so it slows the air down going over the top of the wing and pushes more air to go under the wing, create more downforce. That's usually what happens. The other stuff I've added, which I probably didn't worry about because I think, oh, it's dirt, it probably doesn't really matter. But there's a lot of teams and that now that have gone and bought shock absorber machines, and that so they can test their shocks. A lot of the sprint car guys in Australia here that run even locally, some of the big dollar teams, they've got a dyno shock in their trailer, and they've got a guy who'll test some shocks depending on the track and depending on what the event is, and that so they'll specifically make a shock and that for that night or for that race depending on the track, and that so yeah, so I've gone in to had a look at what the pavement guys have done, or what they did with the pavement cars, and they've got a high speed and low speed, which we do anyway, and that so I reckon they should add that, which is on all four corners. The other thing too I've added too is the right front rim offset. I didn't worry about the rim width, and I just looked at I just put in the rim offset, because as you know there's an 8 inch and a 9 inch, and depending on where that offset is, it depends on how much load will go onto that front, and that so most guys they're running the 4 inch by the feel of the car, but they've got on iracing, it seems like it's a three off, 3 inch off, so it's measured from the inside of the rim to where it bolts onto the front axle, and that so you've got 3 inches of the rim on the inside, and then you've got another 5 inches on the outside of the rim if you run an 8 inch rim. So yeah, and if you run a 9 inch rim, well, that's different again. Some of the guys they'll buy 2 3 inch offsets rims, and then what they'll do is they'll get it so it's a blank, and then they'll drill their own valve stem and that on one side of the wheel, so they've got a 3, a 4, and a 5 inch offset, so depending on the track. And then I've gone through, I've done the rear also. I've left that as is with the packer and all that. When I was looking at this, and that I was thinking about what they do if they decide to add gas shock absorbers in there, because in Australia here, and also I think it's KKR shocks, they're a gas shock. They're an oil body, but they also have got a gas in them, which is basically like a bumper, and that's under compression, and that there's that the gas there to help push it back out again. So I don't know what they'll do with that, but what I've also added in the rear end here on both sides, and that is the radius rod position. I'll transfer this picture back over again. And so if you have a look at the rear radius rod, and that you'll see the black radius where it goes on to just above the exhaust, that can be moved up and down, and um, that's you can see in the picture here it's a standard length, and um, there's two types, and but I'll put that later down further in the garage there. So, but what that does, you can raise it and lower that, and that will then move the bird cage forward at the top if you raise it up, and that which then creates a bit more drive, and that because what it does when it moves the bird cage forward at the top, and that it also moves the differential forward a bit at the top. Sorry, moves the differential forward. Um, so I'll put that in there. So and depending on the chassis, the right hand side usually is only 2, the left hand side is usually 3 because they want to get more left rear drive. Um, so I've done that, as you can see here, on both sides um, of the rear end. And if you have a look on the right hand rear, and that I've also then added in the rim offset. So with the sprint cars, there's two types of rim offsets for the right rear. There's a 17-inch and there's the 18-inch. Um, and as you know, if you go wider in the rim, what it will do then, it will then lower the stagger of the tyre. So if you're running a 105 or 106, depending on what the rules say, and you want to get that down slightly, you can, instead of going running a 17-inch, you can then put on an 18-inch, or if you've got a standard tyre and you've put on an 18-inch rim, you've rolled it and it comes out to like 106 or whatever it is on the rules, and and you want to get a bit more out of it, and you go, well, if I can put it on a 17-inch rim, and that it might have a little bit of wear in the tyre or something, it could be a second-hand tyre or something like that, you can then clean the old rubber off the top of it, put on a 17-inch rim, and then you've still got your decent sized stagger. So also with the rim offsets, um, as you would know, the late model the non-wing sprint cars are now, and that they've added more load on that right rear, and that so it's gone from, well, sliding like a long way, which would be like a 3-inch offset, to basically like a 7-inch offset now, and that where it's, as I said, like the same as the front rim offset, where it's measured from the inside of the rim to where it bolts onto the differential, and that's the rim offset, and then that will cause, because it's aluminium, and the more load depending on where that sits, and they have the 3-inch offset, the outside of the rim will flex more, and that so then it puts less load on the tire. But then if you change that rim offset, and that so it's closer to the center, like you got 3-inch, 4-inch, 5-inch, 6-inch, 7-inch, and that so if you're going closer to the center, and that then puts more load onto the track, and that so and it then causes the rim to flex less, and that so I've put that in there. So hopefully they will see this, and then also added the right hand side brake. There's a lot of the guys that are probably into sprint cars know that some of the sprint car guys do run a brake on the right hand side, and that, but some might go, well, why do they do that? Well, what it does is because it's when it gets mounted, the brake gets mounted onto the bird cage, and the disc is mounted on where the spacers would sit. So they allow for that spacer of the rotor, and that so then what ends up happening is when the wheel's turning, they put their foot on the brake. What it does, it puts load on the bird cage and the spring of the torsion bar arm and the radius rod. And what it does, it pushes weight. It's basically it causes a bind, and it pushes the weight down on that right hand side. That's just the basics of it. So then what it does is then causes the car to turn right, and that so you can use that then to tighten the car up. Some of the guys, they also doing exactly the same thing. They removed the inboard brake and that off the car, and they actually put a brake on the left hand side, and that so then they can do exactly the same thing, and they have with the left rear, and that so all it does, it just causes a bind, and that causes it to drive a lot more, and that so um, not many guys do it, but some guys do. It depends on their driving style and what they want. On the rear end here, you'll probably see I've got the radius rod length. It's down the bottom if you have a look, and that at the moment, as I said, like this picture here, um, that's the standard radius rod length. If you have a look at a non uh, sprint car picture on in Google, you'll see that some guys are actually running the long ones, which is basically goes all the way to where the engine mount is, and they have another bracket on there, and that so it lines up the same distance as the what would you call it, the torque tube bell housing, and that's um, so it's the same, so it stays at the same radius, and then that can be adjusted. So if they decide to put on the left hand on the rear here, if you look at the radius rod position, and that if they decide to go long, and that on the radius rod length, then you can then change that from, instead of being only two, as you can see in this picture here, you've only got two. You one at the bottom there where they've bolted it on at the moment location, where if it had a long radius rod, it goes to the firewall, and that where the engine plate is, and that will then on the left hand side, sorry, on the right hand side, you'll see three mounts, and that you'll have one goes further down, and then you'll have your standard mount, and then you've got another one above it, and on the left hand side, the inside, you'll see four mounts. Depending on the chassis brand and depending on what you're after, some of the brands actually sell two types, where you've got four on the right hand side and three on the left hand side. So all it is basically they're an aluminium plate, and they're I'll do a Google search and I'll show you a picture of it. Long radius rod mount sprint car. Right. Okay, just did a Google search. So as you can see here, this is one here, and that this is a triple X one. It's got, as you can see here, it's got three on one side, and then it's got five on the other. As you can see here, this other picture, so this is the long radius rods. You can see how it's mounted to the chassis, and that. So yeah, and you can see the radius rod how long they are, and they've got the reason why they got that bend in them is because they go around the left rear tire, and so they've got clearance for that, and then when they then they can mount it. So yeah, I think that's something else. Yeah, so that's what the long radius rods look like, and that's so. I'll transfer this back over again. Yeah, so that's the radius rod length. That's the one that you'll see on the cars at the moment. It's the standard one. Then I've also added a Jacobs ladder one in here too at the underneath that, and that's so basically they can move the Jacobs ladder up and down. Once again, I'll do another Google search and I'll show you sprint car Jacobs ladder. Picture. Radio. So I've just done this, as you can see here. So in this picture here, you'll see where they've marked roll center location. That's why the Jacobs ladder is set up. So you'll see where the line comes down, and that from the strap, and that where it bolts to the chassis, and that that point there, plus the hole that sits out on the Jacobs ladder it bolts to the bird cage. That triangle there is what lines up your roll center. So then if you move that up and down, that then will raise and lower your roll center. And that's as you can see here in this picture here. It's got three. Some of them. So this one here has also got three, and this one here has got four. And that's so. Depending on what you're trying to achieve, and that's so. All it does is when you lower the Jacobs ladder down at the bird cage, what it does is it raises the roll center on the rear end, allows the rear end to lay more onto that right rear, to get more drive. Then if you do that on a slick track and then on a tacky track, you would raise that, and that's so what it does is it then lowers the roll center, and yeah, it makes it a lot easier, and that for it stops it from transferring over so much, and then under load. So yeah, so I've done that, and then I've also added. You would have heard some of the when I did a practice on, I think it's International USA International Speedway. The thing was, I was running the tallest gear you could get, and yet she's bouncing off the rev limiter 3/4 of the way down the straight. So sprint cars, they have two type of differential ratios. They've got the 411, and they also got the 486, and then basically the same gear ratios. It's just that because of depending on which one you run, and that will give you a different final drive, and that's why I've put here final drive here, and then yeah, they can click that and you just pick whatever tooth ratio you decide to run, so which will then give you a final drive. That's how basically the sprint cars is how they should look, setup wise, and that's so you're able to then adjust everything. I didn't worry about doing the tyre page because basically it's simple. Instead it's just a stagger, and that you're not changing any rim offsets unless they decide to add that into that section there. But they just left it as a stagger there because it's just a bolt-on part. Yeah, so this here on the right rear is a major one, and so was that right front with the rim offsets, and that so um, and as you know, the big one is also the shock absorbers, and that so if they can increase those shock absorbers to 11 on that left hand side, and increase the right hand side to a 7, and if not a little bit higher, be good, because then you can then lock that rear end down and get more drive if they decide to do some bullring tracks like which ones would be like Placerville, I think it is. That's a quarter mile, and that's um, so yeah, I thought I'd show this to you guys so you can see exactly what a if you're not unsure and that what you can do to a real sprint car. This is basically what you can do to a real sprint car. Um, and then depending on if it's a non-wing car, if it's a non-wing car, then yeah, it's the wing stuff doesn't get put in. So that's basically it. I didn't worry about putting in there adjusting ride heights before you um, put the bars in. So because basically the way they've done it is um, on a sprint car, there are what you'd say you can put in a full turn and that right rear, and it only moves it up a little bit. It just preloads the bar basically. But what they've done there is they decided to put turns in so you can then raise and lower your car, and then they've just changed it by bars, and that's so because basically you've got time to change the bars, and that's so. Only reason why you'd put turns in a car is if it's in a real sprint car race, is if you're out in the track and you need to um, load in some way, like you need to raise a car up or something like that, and you don't have time to block it, or you don't have time to change the bar. So, um, but yeah, that's about it really. I thought I'd do a video and show you guys I've actually put this on the forums, so hopefully they will see it, and hopefully, because because I also put it in there that I'd like to see it even slowly implemented, and that's over time, even if it's like, oh yeah, we'll just add different wheel offsets like this one, and then we'll change the shock absorbers or something like that, and that so they don't have to do it all at once, and that they can do it over updates like they're doing with the late model, where now they're the same as the non-wing sprint car. They've changed the setting of the car and that to get the car to handle it better. So if they do that over time, and that then eventually, well, we should have a good car, and that's so. So that's it, guys. That's all this video is about, basically. And hopefully I'll get some feedback on it, and hopefully get some momentum of them actually improving the car and going to see the sprint car crew chiefs, or actually go into the chassis builder and have a talk to them and discuss with them the physics and that on the sprint car, instead of talking to the sprint car guy, and that, yeah, from what I can gather from him was from the video, he's seems to be more of a driver and not much of a guy that's a setup guy. Like, he'll tell you, yeah, this is how the car handles, but he's not quite sure how it's achieved. So yeah, unless he did a video just saying what he's actually done, and that's, then I can then put in a point of reference of, okay, so you know this much, you know that much, then tell iracing this, tell iracing that. So we'll see what happens. I've only just done that, and that first off to try and get the physics right first. A lot of guys are wanting new bodies for the cars and that, because they don't like the look of that car and that, but the car's alright. I'm hoping also they then decide to add the other two motors, which is a Ford and the Mopar, and if they do that, then give a different body design for those cars, so you can visually see, okay, that car is a Ford, that car is a Mopar, that car is a Chevy. Um, so that's it for this video. If you get onto the iRacing forums and that, have a look at it, and if you think there could be some improvements or something added, put it in the post, and that, and hopefully the guys will see it. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.